install red light cameras, they also have the Freedom from Traffic Camera Act, where there's quite a bit of conversation that you don't have to pay a red light traffic camera ticket in the state of Tennessee.
There's a separate statute which works with this. They're not a moving violation. So the teeth you have with an ordinary citation is if the citation is not paid by the time set by a court, whether it's municipal court or state court, then the Department of Safety is notified if it's a moving violation, and the driver's license may be revoked. These by statute, these automated tickets, if you will, the legislature made them non-moving violations, even though in fact they are moving violations because you're moving past a school bus or you're speeding in a school zone. But they do not result in the same punitive measures. It's basically a civil debt.
Thank you.
What does that mean?
Means you can-
That's right. In other words, if you read their agreement that they put in front of you, they're going to attempt to collect it through the mail. They're going to send a notice of violation to the offender and say, you violated this law. If you want to look at the video, here's a video link of it, and this is what you owe. And if you don't pay it, you can be turned over for collection.
And thank you, Mr. Kimball. Mr. Taylor, or Chief Gibson, I don't know who this goes to, but you mentioned that a police officer has to review it, but the citation would be sent out by this company via Cleveland City Schools. So what would the ticket say? Who is sending the violation? Is it going to say City of Cleveland, or is it going to say Cleveland City Schools?
Well, I believe it still has to say, I'm guessing according to that, I don't know.
City.
But I think it'd be the city, yeah.
Okay. I obviously support the safety of children and my grandchildren, so I think we need to figure this out. But I do think that there have been some really good questions today from the council. Is there anything further from Mr. Taylor? Yes, sir, Councilman Estes.
Mr. Kimball, who's the other side of the civil suit? The city of Cleveland?
No, sir. Chattanooga has been doing speed cameras for years, okay? If you've ever wandered through one of their speed zones and you exceed the speed that whatever they set, let's say it's a 30-mile-an-hour speed zone on, I can't remember the name of the road that has one, but it
W
runs.
Road. W Road, I think, yeah.
No, the road I'm thinking of runs between Brainerd Road and the interstate, and it begins with an E. It's not more, it's like McBrien or
Belvoir.
Belleville. So Belleville Road used to have one of those. If you drive by it, there's a sign there, and if you exceed whatever the number is, then you'll get something in the mail. Okay. This gentleman that's here with the speed zone camera, his company does it for other cities in Tennessee. You might want to ask him some of these questions, because they do it right now for how many cities in Tennessee?
Probably at least 10, maybe.
So they're doing it for 10 cities in Tennessee. He can tell you exactly how it works in those other 10 cities.
So my question is, if it's a civil collection, who is it that's asking for the money? The city of Cleveland?
The government.
Not the state of Tennessee?
No, sir.
The city of Cleveland?
Yes, sir.
All right, this is already on the agenda for 3 o'clock. It is item J. Blue Control looking for the stop arm violation, so we don't need action from the council right now. It is on the 3 o'clock agenda. Mr. Taylor, thank you. Any other closing comments?
No, I appreciate your consideration on this. Like I said, we know it's a serious thing to think about and consider. There's always two sides to an issue.
All right.
And if I may say one more thing.
Sure.
The chief and them have been great about this, but the labor it takes for an officer to actually enforce our stop signs is incredible. And they have come out when we've had problems, and I want y'all to know that they've done their best to help us on that. But it's just a very difficult, an officer either has to use these cameras or they have to see it themselves and see so that's what makes it so hard to just say, let your police handle it, because it's a very labor-intensive situation for them to try to catch people who are riding the stop sign.
And I'm going to ask one follow-up question. Chief Gibson, would this be added to the cameras that are being currently watched by the AWARE system?
No, we would probably, we have a traffic team that's primarily that crash team. We would probably utilize that in some way for them to review those and to work on issuing the tickets. So haven't clearly figured it out. We just, as far as how we work that out, so it's going to depend on how the operations work, but it would probably come from somebody on our crash team that would be reviewing those.
Great, thanks, Chief. Mr. Taylor, Cleveland City Schools is also item C on the agenda, and I understand you said Dr. Elliott's not here. Will you or another member of your team be making that presentation?
Yeah, before Dr. Elliott.
Mr. Kaiser, he's here.
Yeah. Before Dr. Elliott, he was just, there wasn't really any presentation, just basically saying they've passed their budget and it's a balanced budget, and Kelly can certainly.
I'll give you a high level overview since I got tagged you're it apparently. The school board did pass its annual budget on May 5th. That is a balanced budget of $44,755,804, of which 83% or 82.7 is staff salaries and benefits. The board identified 3 priorities in this budget. One was staff step raises and a 3% cost of living raise. Growth positions. So there were 5 teaching positions added, including 6 schools, 1 social worker position, 1 school psychologist, 1 teacher assistant, and 1 maintenance staff member. And then the 3rd priority was cleaning staff services. If you would like to have, if you have any specific questions, Ms. Cindy Garion is back here, and she by all means is much more of an expert on the budget process than I am. But we'll entertain any questions if you have them.
Did you say 44 million?
44.
The banner said 71.
71. I must be giving you. Oh, I know what it was. I'm giving you the TISA. TISA funding is what I'm giving you. It's 44.
Yeah, based on 44.
Yeah,
The rest
71
is-
total. Yeah.
Thanks.
All right, any other comments or questions from the council for Dr. Kaiser? Seeing none, please express our condolences, Dr. Elliott.
I will be happy to. He hate to miss it, but his wife's grandfather passed away. So he is here.
All right, that takes us to item D under special presentations. That's Cleveland Utility Authority. I see our friend Mr. Henderson. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. And unlike the city, we have yet to pass our budget, so we are here ahead of that to present with you some highlights of what we expect. And Councilman Ness, I agree with you. He said it's always good to see Marshall behind me with the accuracy of numbers. He just has to tolerate me. But real quickly, I just want to say thank you for your service and what you all do as a council and guidance, and especially for having Marcia and David and Kevin a part of our board now. And they have been very supportive and have heard a lot of our conversations on the challenging things that have been before us. And I want to also compliment city staff. As we move forward into any budget year, it is paramount that we work with the city at a high level and understand the challenges that we have. Quite honestly, this has been probably the most challenging growth that we've seen in the last few years. And I know you all know this all too well, but it's extremely important that we're on the same page with regards to those challenges. Our services are fantastic. You'll hear from Marshall that the business is good, stable, all of those things, but the challenges that are facing wastewater are huge and continue to be huge, and we're trying to manage that to the best of our abilities, and you'll hear that in some of the presentation comments that Marshall will have. But again, I'm always thankful that we have an opportunity to communicate and to be here and present to you all some of those challenges. And with that, Marshall, come up and talk about this year's proposed budget.
And I'll second the same thanks Tim had for each of you. We appreciate your input and we appreciate your time. I know it's a little different in how this review process works now, but we do take value in knowing that we still get to come before you and present each year and give you an insight into kind of how our budget works and what we are seeing in the future. Because we know that has a very large impact on what the future for the city looks like. For fiscal year 26, it's best to look back at fiscal year '25 and see how that year has progressed. Thus far this year, we are on target with our budget for fiscal year '25. We have seen this year, obviously the weather in January and February was a bit different, especially on the electric side than what we have experienced the last couple of years. We've seen what would really get really close to double-digit growth related to the actual demand as it falls in our full system for the electric system. You're continuing to see more customers add into the system. But what's unique is, although we talk about the overall demand for the system grows, the actual revenue and the kilowatt hours that we sell to customers is staying fairly consistent. A lot of that's attributed to the efficiency. As we've all heard over many, many years, you've had efficiency in everything, whether it's your appliances, your cell phones, your lights. It doesn't matter what device you plug into an outlet, it becomes more and more efficient. And so you do see customer growth go up, but you are starting to see that average consumption per customer start to flatten, which does start to put pressure on how you pay for the expenses related to that service. And so for fiscal year '26, both electric, water, and wastewater, we are projecting a modest growth rate in those sales categories, but in most cases it's 1 to 1.5%. And so that does put pressure on the top line number. For perspective, for the electric division, we are projecting total line revenue of about $118 million. We expect expenses to be about $110 million and total net income to come in just shy of $9 million for the electric division. The electric division, on the alternative side of that, expects to invest $47 million in capital assets for fiscal year '26. The vast majority of that money is related to the fiber project, as you're well aware. But there is a number of capital projects for the electric division that are forthcoming. We're continuing to work with TPA on the conveyance of their side of East Cleveland to Cleveland Utilities. So that is in the budget, and that would add additional capacity for the electric division here, which will be a vital component of how the city grows and how our ability to serve a growing power demand is served here in Cleveland. The electric division doesn't forecast any additional debt for the next year, and that's attributed to the debt that was borrowed for the fiber project. The ending debt for the electric division is projected to be $57.3 million. We do have forecasted for a rate increase in the electric division. That rate increase, though, is only to fund increasing operational expenses. So you all are well aware, but everything we buy today continues to go up. Transformers, wire, conduit, insulators, labor, every piece of what we do to serve electric in the city of Cleveland continues to increase. And so that is only to fund that. We won't have a finalized rate increase until October. So what we're doing is just passing the idea of the amount of revenue, and then we'll go back to the cost of service study and perform that in October. For the water division, we are projecting that total revenue would be about $28 million. Expenses would be $22 million with an operating net income of about $5.5 million. Again, you go back to what is the investment in new facilities. As Tim alluded to, growth is happening across the entire footprint of our system. We project to spend an investment next year of $13.3 million for the water division. The water division is anticipated to borrow $5 million in '26 with an ending debt carrying of just shy of $31 million. The water division is forecasting to have a rate increase of 6.25%. That is the same number. Actually, all the numbers I'm going to give you for rate changes were the same as what we projected last year. So thankfully, the projections are coming in line with anticipated. And again, that's to fund operating expenses. And in the water division, it is to fund a small portion of capital projects that we have forthcoming. For the wastewater division, again, we're projecting total revenue of $22.2 million, expenses of $18 million, with a net income of $4.3 million. But again, the same story holds true when it comes to investment. As Tim alluded to, the wastewater division has been the most impacted with what's coming with the growth. For the wastewater division, we project to expend $31.2 million in fiscal year '26. The majority of that is related to the expansion that we're having in our annexed areas, continuing to fund those projects, along with getting ready for the expansion that will have to take place at the wastewater plant itself. on the Hiawassee River. The wastewater division projects to borrow $15.5 million in fiscal year '26 and will round out the year with a $15.7 million debt offering. Something that's very important, and we spent some time speaking with the Utility Authority Board this last meeting about the wastewater division's capital projects and what is needed going forward. With a division like that and an annual revenue of $22 million, you start looking at a debt load that's 2 times your annual revenue. That obviously gives people concern, because from a borrowing perspective, they want to ensure that those investments in bonds are going to be repaid. One of the things we've got to focus on is if we know this investment is going to continue and we know we have to continue to keep investing in our facilities, we have to build a revenue stream that supports that debt. And so we spent time in the last session talking about that with the board in ways that can be accomplished. And so there's a multitude of ways you can do that, but one of which is continuing to look at how do you recapture those fees, especially from new developments and newly annexed areas, because those are where the majority of those dollars are coming from and where they're being driven from. One item to note is for the fiber division. For next year, we project total revenue to be $1.8 million. We do expect expenses to be roughly $3 million and to show a net loss next year of about $1.2 million. That sounds frightening on the surface, but it is worth noting that in fiscal year '26, we will still be continuing to build out the system. Today, we've built the majority of the aerial components of the fiber system, but we only have about a third of the underground. And today, we have roughly half of our existing areas live. The rest of those are projected to be completed in fiscal year '26. So we'll continue to add more mileage for fiber, more areas available for customers to sign up. One of the best things is that we have started to see, especially over the last 3 months, the trend of number of customers signing up and getting installed is continuing to increase week after week after week. So that continues to show that the investment is getting customers. And the nice thing to date is we've only lost 1 customer since we started operation. And I have a feeling we're going to get that customer back in the next week. They have an outage right now that they can't get fixed for a week. So we've talked to them this morning, and they're interested in getting services restored. But what we do anticipate is at the end of next year, the fiber division will have a debt borrowing of $7.4 million. So that's paying off about $500,000 of the money that it borrowed from the electric division, for a total of $8 million. That really rounds out. We do project to have a 3.5% merit increase for all employees that do qualify. And we're projecting that next year, with the total for the fiber division, we would have 243 employees. That's really a really high bar to set, because right now getting qualified people is very difficult. But we are actively searching for fiber employees today. And with that concludes my comment.
Thank you. Any comments or questions from the Vice Mayor?
Marshall, at one time, I know getting transformers was very, very difficult. Is that getting any better?
It has to a certain extent, but it depends on the transformer. So your standard single-phase transformers have gotten better. Your large, what I would call utility scale, your power transformers at the substations has gotten worse. And that's why the East Cleveland project is such a big deal for us, is that if that's going to get conveyed in '26, we would have to order a transformer and not see delivery until possibly 2028. So that's a long lead time for a transformer of that scale.
Are any of those being made domestically now?
100% of ours are made here in the United States.
Yeah.
Councilman Estes? And yay,
A
Councilman Beck.
couple questions. Did you say fiber would be fully rolled out by the end of fiscal year '26?
Yes, sir. That is the anticipated plan.
That's what the newspaper, that's great.
Construction is slated to finish in the first quarter of 2026.
And you said 5 million in water, 15 million wastewater borrowing. What's the debt to revenue ratio where you guys get uncomfortable, or bond rating folks get uncomfortable?
So one of the good things is with the wastewater division, which is where the heaviest debt load is at right now, is we're still above our targets for that. But one of the things we've got to show going forward, especially knowing that you've got $150 or $200 million worth of investment in that division, is that you've got a revenue stream that you've planned for and that you've set a rate or a collection strategy for how you get to that number.
When you say collection strategy, is that like an impact fee?
So it could be dependent. It could be an impact fee, it could be a capacity fee, it could be a fee that you would pay when you sign up to get a meter. There's a lot to be determined in that. And what we're trying to do right now is study the right way to capture those dollars. Because the question that is on everybody's mind is should every customer pay for a newly annexed area? Especially an annexed area that is a tremendous expense. Some of these out fringe areas are very, very expensive. And some of the areas are in an area that may be unservable today without tremendous investment.
Do you know what might help us is when we annex, there's a plan of service. And if you were more detailed in the plan of service, here you say, oh, here's what the revenue will be, but you never put in there what the cost will be. So going forward, maybe on the plan of service that comes before the planning commission and this body, if we could see the actual, granted, you set your own rates, you set everything, right? So, but us seeing that would be helpful.
I do think in the last 4 years,
Yes.
those numbers have been there. The Dry Valley Road is one that's a great example. It's just right off the top of my head. That plan of service showed that was going to be roughly $4.5 million.
I'm gonna go pull my files. I don't recall reading that in the plan of service, but
I'm curious, like you are, to see how the information that we present gets displayed. That may be something that we need to make sure.
It's in the plan of service.
Okay.
is it? Okay, my bad.
Right, Robert?
Yes.
And Councilman, so we also are putting capacity numbers, what we know we can serve in your new annexed areas. That's something we historically did not do. So when we evaluate a plan of service the city sends to us, we'll know, with comfort where we can have those limitations of what kind of flows.
One last silly question. Why not buy a huge transformer and keep it on your new lot?
The challenge with the transformers are they need to be spec'd based on what you anticipate the load of it to be. If you were to buy an oversized transformer and then you energize it, it's going to have losses. And those losses then translate into more energy that you're paying for that you don't need. So it just drives the operating costs higher. So very much like the water and wastewater team say a lot of times, they can build a system to any edge that you want it. It's always knowing what's at the end of that edge. And going out into the fringe areas is good for growth and expansion in the future, but if it's an area we have to pump, well, we can't just set a very large pump at the very end expecting things to grow towards us, because that very big pump can't take that small load and actually push it. It has to have enough volume to do that. So same kind of analogy.
Marshall,
Thanks.
are you still using the 1.4 as the target debt ratio?
No, that target's now 1.5 to 1.7, depending upon which division we're talking about. With the utility standing on its own now and having its own debt borrowing capacity, those numbers had to be adjusted slightly.
What kind of target are you hearing from the rating agencies that they want you to have, the 1.5, the 1.7?
They would like to see anything above a 1.7. I will say when we went through our rating calls, it's been 6 months ago now, we got exemplary scores when it comes to our strategy and what our plan is. Obviously putting together a 10-year plan and showing what you anticipate rates and revenues to do over those 10 years, that's a big component of what the rating agencies take into account, because they consider that active management, which is still lacking in some industries. So putting together a plan and having that in place is critical.
Joe, Marshall, as goes wastewater, as goes development, and it's hand in hand.
Active.
I think sometimes we forget that.
And that's the piece we want to make sure that we're always on the leading edge of that curve, because we understand where we have infrastructure is where growth can take place. And so we want to get in a position to where we can always have the infrastructure necessary for that growth as it comes, rather than the opposite.
And it's an investment in the future, and it's also an investment that at some point in time is going to enhance your revenue potential.
Potentially, and that's always the unknown. We have an example now where we've expanded. We're 6 years into that expansion and there's less than 5 homes. So it can be vice
But I
versa.
think that's one example of many that have been very successful.
It's dependent upon the area. That's the factor. Where is that area and what other infrastructure is available in that area? Those are some of the big things that we've seen.
All right, any other comments or questions for Mr. Stinnett? Thanks very much. Thank you, Mr. Henderson. That takes us to item number 2 on the agenda, which is the city manager's report. We will hear from Mr. Fivas and a quick review of the 3 o'clock agenda that is rapidly approaching.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor and the City Council. Today, just a quick update. Obviously, today we did not have our re-grand opening of Johnston Park. That has been rescheduled for next Thursday at 1 o'clock. We do have another presentation from artists here that the last meeting they came and scheduled that with the City Council. And that, on here it says 11 o'clock on the agenda, but it's really 11:30. So 11:30 is Artists Here, then directly after that is the re-grand opening of Johnston Park. So that should be exciting. Item 2 is, I've gotten many questions on the flashing lights on Stewart Road for the school, and we're in the last stretch of a school year. And I think we finally have had some breakthroughs, and we're waiting for the state, because there were flashing lights at Candies Creek Elementary School, and we're taking those and moving them to Stewart Road, and then they're putting in new ones. The state is putting in new ones at Candies. What we have is, and we're very thankful that Cleveland Utilities, is that we had a situation where we had a sidewalk, a force main, which made it very difficult to get a light in there, and they're allowing us to attach to a pole that would allow us to do that. So we appreciate their flexibility to work with us to get that, and that will be a breakthrough. So hopefully when they come back to school in the fall, that will be there, and that had us worried there for a while, because the flashing light would have been 20 feet from the road. So this helps a lot. At the last meeting, we had, if you recall, we had School Director Jeff Elliott came and presented the letter to the City Council. And they said that they would prefer to have two new community schools in the northeast and southwest areas of Cleveland. And then they also asked to authorize district leadership to begin a coordinated planning effort with city officials to identify appropriate land, secure necessary funding, and establish a timeline for that development. So I thought that it would be important to come back with some options on how to help facilitate that request from the last meeting. We have a couple things in front of you to go over. The first item is this handout. Oh, there it is. Pennies for Progress. Little handout. You have this in front of you. There's some extra copies over there if anyone wants to look at it. Essentially, it goes through options for proposed future city investments. Basically, it's a plan that if the council were at some point to do a 9-cent tax increase on what you could do. If you recall, we started out this conversation that we wanted about 22 cents. We're able to work the numbers and figure out different options, and we've gotten that down to 9 cents. So if you were to implement this and set the rate after revaluation 9 cents higher, we don't know what our certified rate is right now. We think it will drop from somewhere between 1.71. It'll be somewhere between 1.25 and 0.3, but we do not have any idea. That's just, those are guesses. We don't really have that, but we think it's probably, from what we're looking at, is probably somewhat accurate. That if you, from that new certified rate, if you were to raise that 9 cents, you would be able to do some of these projects I'm going to go over in just a moment. That based on a home appraised value of $300,000, that with these projects that we're going to talk about, it'd be $4.57 a month for that home with $300,000, or 15 cents a day, to be able to do that. And the projects that we've identified as there's like when you're buying a car, this is the basic model, this is just what you need, and then there are some additional add-ons if the council wanted to look at any of those. I also, along with my little one-page handout, have a more detailed analysis in front of you that goes through each of these in much more detail. So the first, for 2 pennies, so out of the 9, so 2 is that you would be able to increase the annual neighborhood paving by approximately 40 cents. Since 2017, because of the cost of materials and labor has gone up by about 40 cents, we'd be bringing ourselves back down to our paving levels of 2017. So we've lost about 40% of our capacity for paving during that time with materials. So that would be 2 cents. The next 2 cents of that would be dedicated towards widening of Mouse Creek Road, widening of Michigan Avenue, and the widening of Freewheel Road over the next 5 years. Basically, we would do that as pay-as-you-go and potentially some bonding. Is basically we would widen those out, probably add some left-hand turn lanes on some of the intersections, and add other safety items on all 3 of these corridors. We would probably ask and get into a conversation with the county to participate on the Michigan Avenue, because a lot of that traffic is from the county. The next item is 3 pennies would be the construction of the 2 elementary schools. Then the 4th item would be the construction of a multi-field sports complex and the indoor athletic and event center and the aquatics facility for 2 pennies. So that's 9 cents. Well, does 9 cents pay for all of that? No. What we're doing is, if you keep your debt service the same over 20 years, this is how much you would need to be able to pay for these items if you kept your debt service the same during that time. So for very smaller amounts, you're getting high value because of the way that the council has strategically structured our debt, meaning we have a declining debt, 30, 31, 32, that goes down very far, and it opens us up to have a lot of capacity to borrow for these projects. Now, there are 3 additional projects that you could consider to add on. One is a combo of, and they wouldn't be in the same location, they'd be separate locations, but they would be the same penny, is that a new city-county nonprofit animal shelter and the Empowerment Center of Traditional Housing that would be able to fill the gap of funding that we're trying to get grants for right now, to be able to do that. The 3rd one is Candy's Greenway and the Fletcher connection and the Harris Pike connection. So what is that? we think we may have a breakthrough on the connection from Candy's Greenway to Fletcher Park, the back way through there. That's a potential. But we need funding to be able to construct those couple bridges down to Fletcher Park, and we're working on the right-of-way to get from Fletcher Park out to Harrison Pike, and then there's enough right-of-way to go down Harrison Pike for connecting the Greenway into the Mouse Creek Greenway. So these 2 pennies this 1 penny would be dedicated towards that. And the last one is 25th Street improvements, streetscape safety improvements, and Greenway connections. On this sheet, you see comparison of property values of communities that are similar to Cleveland that have city school systems. Right now, we are at hope we'll probably be somewhere around 125, whatever that number comes back is. Maryville is 150, Collierville is 184, Johnson City is 187, Tullahoma is 195, Kingsport is 199, Bristol is 225, Oak Ridge is 231, and Dyersburg is 247. So I did add some information. I don't want to get into a prolonged conversation on the multi-sports indoor athletic complexes. We've talked about them. We do have studies that I want to point out a couple items to on those. Is the reason that those are so powerful and keep rising to the top is, and those are the ones that we had pictures of at the last meeting, is that, and we're going to do 2 things. We're going to bring the consultants in to give you a presentation on what all that means and how they did their calculations. But we're also proposing to go to Morristown, which has built something not the same, but similar, that has actually an aquatic piece on there, and to go kind of do a road trip and check and see what that's all about. But my key points are on the combo. So the multi-field sports complex, they are flat fields, 7-on-7 football, soccer, turf fields. The other facility, if you want to go, oh, there it is. You already went there. So so there are 4 options that we would look at combining. One is the Rocky Mount Event Center, which you can have, it's a facility, indoor facility that can get 5,000 people. So you're talking about concerts, you're talking about graduation ceremonies, and you can see there, I think that might be a church service. There it folds out that you can have venue side, you can have basketball, you can have what other events. You have 8 basketball courts or 16 volleyball courts. You could have concerts. Rock Hill has a similar facility. Birmingham, or that's actually in Hoover, the Hoover complex. And this is the one that they just got done building in Morristown Landing. It has pool, indoor facilities in there, and that's the one that we wanted to go take a look at. I am not here to convince you that we should do that today. I gave you some information that you can look at. But I think what I wanted to go is that if you decided that you wanted to move forward on the funding for schools, that's what it would take when the council was ready to do that in the future. Getting back to my numbers, the sports tourism study that we did with the county and with the chamber is that building these facilities would result in $1.4 million in new revenue. Those would be new tax revenues that would come to local government. $41 million in new annual spending within the community on an annual basis. So So there's different indexes that you can look at. For usually about every $1 million that you spend in a local economy, it usually creates about 13 jobs. So if you did 13 times 41, you're somewhere 533 new jobs to our area. And we would have 68,000 new hotel nights. So that's what, when the experts come in and talk to you, that's what they're going to talk about, how this can go. And we would build, or propose to build, the aquatic piece onto the other piece for sports tourism reasons. Again, just giving you information right now. Don't need to get into the middle of that. We'll have some time to go over that. But again, getting back to the key premise, schools asked, fund 2 schools. This is one of the pathways that you can go and do that. Any questions on that before I go to the second? Go ahead.
Joe, one question. The other cities that you have listed here, do we know where they are in their reappraisal process? No. Okay. There's only one of those that's lower now than our current tax rate, though.
Yes.
Chances are, if we go to $1.25, that they would go to something greater than that if they're looking at a reappraisal, and we'd still be lower.
Every market's different.
Could be.
I got a question, Councilman Webb, on that. That's why we used to do city and county together. That's the only apples to apples. And Cleveland by far is the lowest when you combine city and county.
Even that, though, Bill, depending on where they are in their reappraisal process, could be a little misleading.
It could be misleading, but they're not below us.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, they haven't been below us.
7 out of these 8.
We've been doing this for 18 years.
7 out of these 8 are greater than we are now, not taking the reappraisal
Right.
into
But when you throw in the variable of the county, they're going to be a lot higher than us, and they have been all A of 8 for 18 years. It's not going to change. Joe, when you say these pennies will carry us through, let's say fiscal year 32, 33, and then we continue our debt service going forward, our current level of debt service going forward, is that
Fundamentally, yes.
20 years? Is that what you're thinking?
Yes. This would be akin to, at the last meeting, you had Ted came in and gave you what 8.5 cents would be, and so the numbers would be analogous to that.
And Councilman, is this Vision 2030, that range where the
32, 33, I'm
drops
up
off?
here. Well, it really hits hard 32 down. I'm looking at it. So you're looking at 20 years of that. Okay. And there's no, when you if this were to go through, Joe, let's say 9 through, let's say 12 cents went through. Do you lock that money in now, or do you borrow year to year to year, and then the rates are different year to year? How does that work? How would we work that? Because, interest rates, well, they kind of flattened for the last 6 months, but, the Fed says one thing, the President says another, we don't have a crystal ball. How does that, plan for that?
I want to understand, restate your question, I just want to make sure I understand that.
If we were to say, yes, 12 cents, do we lock, and you said this is going to happen over 2028, 2031, over different time periods, we draw this money down, schools will be at a different time. We wouldn't need that money this year, so do we lock in a rate today and then borrow in 3 years, or do we borrow in 3 years and choose the rate at that time?
I think we actively look for good options in the market. Several of these, like the paving, would be pay-go. I mean, when you're paying as you go, is so you wouldn't. And what I liked about this is that we're not borrowing as much with this strategy, is because just year to year you would take 2 cents or the equivalent of 2 cents and put that in your payment. Same thing with the widening, is that you can do that and spread it out. Is that you can go and do $500,000 worth of work and do that. So I would say when you borrowed this now, we would, depending on the open dates, and we would facilitate that and sell when it was in our best advantage. you don't want to do it too early because you don't want to have bonds, now it's bond money sitting around, but you would probably sometime 27 do that. You would just you'd look at the market and time the market for that you could do to have that flexibility.
Fixed refi time is beneficial.
Yeah. And this wouldn't be, for those that would be concerned with it, is that you're not giving carte blanche, is that they still have to come back and follow their process and give you design plans and do that. So this is just putting a funding mechanism in place, and then all the approvals would be there as well.
One thing that dropped out of the just minimal bare bones was was a fire hall. Where did that fall? We don't need it. There's other ways to fund it.
There could be other ways to fund it. It just didn't rise up there, but that's something that could be contemplated. We could build that in. The tricky piece with that is also if it's a new fire hall with staffing, which is a big number. If it's just replacing one of our older stations, then that's a fixed capital cost. That's probably easier. Right.
All right, any other comments or questions for Mr. Primus?
Okay. Moving on to the second piece, getting back to a letter from city schools, is looking at, well, how do we move the ball down the field and be part of many conversations. And this is just my recommendation. Of course, the council can go in any direction that you choose. But my recommendation is to set up a city school investment ad hoc committee. We would designate they would designate 3 school board members and designate 3 elected officials. And here I have the mayor or his designee and the 2 at-large members to be on this. And basically the purpose of the committee would to begin the process of coordinating plan, and I'm taking language out of what Jeff's letter said. Coordinating planning efforts to identify appropriate properties for city schools. This was something that was mentioned in the meeting before. Making sure that we have a good idea what the operational costs are for the future new schools. How are those going to be taken into account for city council to secure funding for boards and Cleveland residents, identify necessary funding for operational development, construction costs, and establish a funding timeline for upcoming school development projects. And in here, there was a conversation about educational consultants that this board, that if they wanted to get some additional education consultants, they can certainly do that. That's been a conversation here at the council. So basically, the schools have their plan, their process that they follow, and it's new school development 3.2081. And essentially, what this committee, it says that the Board of Education would use a site committee. Essentially, we would partner with the city schools and work collaboratively to help on some of these key questions. I think these times are probably a little different than the last times that we've had schools. I mean, there's so much there's so much active development and where things are going to be. I think the more people at the table with different perspectives will give us the best, hopefully the best outcome as far as citing a school, what the process looks like as far as funding and going on. Again, this is my recommendation to y'all, and you guys can take it from there. But I think having that ad hoc committee, that we're sitting down working on the key issues, is much more effective than sending memos back and forth to each other. I think sitting down and talking about these things would be helpful.
All right, thank you, Mr. Fox. Any comments or
So
input?
we need to put that on the 3 o'clock, or?
It is not on the 3 o'clock
Yeah.
agenda.
We need to put it on 3 o'clock. We're
It
gonna-
depends on how people feel about it, of course.
Okay.
All right, I will accept that, Councilman May, as a motion to add it to the 3 o'clock new business. And I will count on you at the appropriate time. Item L, as in Larry. Lima.
Moving on to the agenda, Mr. Mayor, if you're ready for that.
You know, Mr. President, I did want to take just a quick second.
Oh, yeah.
I know we're.
Oh, please do.
City school property purchase request memo is what I want to call it, Councilman Mayor.
That's deal
On the new, that's correct. Mr. Fivas, before you begin the agenda review of the 3 o'clock meeting agenda, I just want to take a quick moment and thank you and staff, especially building and inspections. We had a great pre-meeting luncheon today, and Brian Turner and his team brought forth this really informative spreadsheet, presented it to the council, introduction, and I just wanted to take the time on behalf of the council just to say how much I personally enjoyed it, how informative it was. I've even asked for this spreadsheet electronically because I think this is such great information, and just wanted to take a moment to say it first. And let's.
And we think we should, and as we said before, we think we do need to have more of that. I think having that more one-on-one, smaller group conversation is very helpful for everyone
Well,
involved.
I agree. The city of Cleveland has grown and continues to grow, and the staff continues to grow, and I think anytime we can have one-on-one lunches with departments and all of the team members, I think it's just a great way to build the family of the city of Cleveland and the camaraderie. I'm hoping that the council agrees. I think it was a great.
No, it's fantastic.
And with that, Mr. Fivas, I think we are ready for the review of the 3 o'clock agenda. Going forward.
All right, on item 6A, we'll have a public hearing to hear public comments request by Tom Tate for consideration of ordinance to amend Area 3, HUD 48, located along North Lee Highway. It includes replacing single-family lots with duplex lots and 2 single-family estate lots, allowing for 40 feet of right-of-way. This was approved by the Planning Commission 6-0. I'm not aware of any concerns with that. I know that the developer is just trying to get everything, you know, things change when you're putting together complex sites like that. I think that they're just trying to get it better organized, and Robert can speak to that, and I believe Mr. Cade is here as well when we get to that meeting. 6B, the public hearing to hear public comments concerning a request by City Fields and Tyler Price for the consideration of ordinance to abandon a section of right-of-way between Winnetonka and Aurora. Basically, this is part of the development of that. There was some property that the I believe is in the hands of the I can't remember what it's called.
The land bank?
The land bank, thank you. It was an early morning this morning. That it's in the hands of the land bank, and they're working with City Fields to get that under their control. I think they plan on building several houses in that area. Item 6C is to hear public comments concerning a request by Cooper Coin Properties for consideration of plan of service, a resolution to annex and ordinance of 3 acres or less on a property in 22nd Street from FAR to R1 single family residential. Along 22nd Street, they have a number of neighborhoods going on. This is just adding an additional 3 acres to those developments over there. We are, that road is in the county right now. We've been approached by County Road Commission, Commissioner, and we're having conversations about getting that road into the city. We have working on a compromise where they would do some work and we would do some work to bring up that road to city standards. Excuse me. And so a nice, hopefully a nice compromise is that the county would contribute and we would contribute and do the best in the best interest of those residents who are there. 6D is to hear public comments concerning a request from Epperson Allison Homes, consideration of plan of service resolution to annex 3.46 acres. To zone 5 acres was to property located at Old Freewell Road. This was passed 5-0. Last thing. I think they just added some additional land to their current project. Item 7A has authorized the mayor to sign a TDOT state highway maintenance contract for a period of 24 months.
Hey, Mr. Fivas, if I could ask a quick question on that. This actually began about 3 weeks ago, and I was pleased to see that this was on today's consent for the council to address. Multiple trips to the Atlanta Airport, Knoxville Airport, and everything in between. I began to notice how differently exits 20, 25, and 27 looked, and was actually going to ask for a review of the contract because I remembered we do have a contract with the state. But the tree growth, I think the grass between the interstate exits is one conversation, but the tree growth, especially around exit 20 and 27, under the bridges and where it's coming up from underneath and beside the bridge, we're really some of the only exits between here in Knoxville and between here and the Georgia line, exit 1, that has this anomaly. I was reading Exhibit A of the contract with TDOT. The following items on Exhibit A are the responsibility of the contractor, City of Cleveland, and not eligible for reimbursement by the state is tree removal and vegetation along the right-of-way back of curves beyond the edge pavement service on roadway segments which are not access controlled. I'm asking this as in the form of a question. Are we the ones that are supposed to be cutting these trees because other exits don't have them, and 20 and 27 specifically have them, 27 being worse of the two? And how do we fix that in the future?
Yeah, I'm going to bring some smart people up here in a second to see if they have any. It's not reimbursable, so that means it's probably not our responsibility. What we would probably do in those situations, being made aware of it, is that we would probably talk to TDOT in Chattanooga and say, well, here's our problem. How do we fix it? They probably have people that do that, and they can probably go out and take care of it. They just haven't been aware of that. If they need us to do that or participate, we probably don't have an issue. We would probably need their permission to get on their property and do any work. Is David here? Do you have anything to add to that?
No, everything you said is accurate. We call them, they'll address it. They probably just don't know about it.
Vice Mayor.
I think you might want to include exit 25.
I think exit 25 definitely needs to be included, but of the 3 Cleveland exits, 20 and 27 seem to be particularly overgrown. 25 equally, but just not the same.
I just see it more often than I see the other.
When this conversation began in my mind, in my car 3 weeks ago, I did not know this contract was going to be on the consent. It's just timely. Councilman Moore, did you?
Yeah, I was gonna say, Keith and 25th, I've been told from Tommy on that riffraff going into kind of Elliott's boots.
Right.
It's also under that obligation, I believe. I'm gonna send you pictures there.
We've actually gotten complaints about that intersection before.
It looks terrible right now.
All right.
So what I'm hearing as a request is to look at those exits. Whatever our survey finds, I would probably throw under going to Cleveland State, there's a tree that's fallen and kind of hanging there in between the two roads.
Right.
That I think that we can put together a good list and go and talk with exit 27, exit 25, and what are all the specific things that need to happen, and we can work with them on kind of coming up with a game plan.
Well, we're investing so many of the taxpayer dollars at these exits, beautiful new sign, welcome to Cleveland, and all these other amenities that we're adding. But the fundamental, who's trimming the trees and getting rid of the overgrowth doesn't seem to be being addressed. And that, I think, would be. And litter's another question. I'm gonna go ahead, and this is another topic for another day, but our interstate signage, especially when you get off at exit 25, it's falling down. It's not our signs, it's not the city of Cleveland, it's the state highway signs, the 75, the hospital to the right. It just looks bad. As a matter of fact, when you get off at exit 25 right now, someone has hit some of those signs and they're bent. Our ground, welcome to the Cherokee
Forest.
Gateway Forest. Drive to Knoxville, their signs look great. Drive to Chattanooga, their signs look great. Come past Cleveland, our signs don't. And as weird as, it's not even a topic on today's agenda, but so let's get the trees and the trimming done first, and then we'll go after signs and wonders.
Well, we'll talk about all of those things in the same meeting. It'll be the same. It'll be the same people. And
Same people? Okay. All right.
We'll attack all of that.
All right. Sorry to interrupt consent agenda. Let's go back to motion B.
So on here you have a new agreement with the Greater Cleveland Soccer Association. I don't know if there's anyone here from Greater Cleveland. We have met with them 4 or 5 times, Jonathan. And we worked on an agreement that you have in front of you to replace the current agreement that we have. We had an agreement with the Greater Cleveland Soccer Association since, I believe, 1995. We've obviously had a very good working relationship with them. This agreement is a little bit different. Is that in the past it's been, and there have been 10 years agreements, is that this is actually transforming from a lease to a use agreement for the lease. And that actually probably benefits them in some ways. It reduces their liability insurance, that puts the onus on us to take care of the park for that facility a little bit more. We went through item by item. I think that they've agreed with everything. They said that they might have one small item they need to talk about, but I have not heard from them on that, and so they may be fine. A couple of the really big things of going from lease to use agreement is that they used to pay $5,000, and now they'll pay $2,000 a month for every month, so it's $24,000.
Did it used to be $5,000 a month?
I'm sorry, $5,000 a year.
Okay.
I misspoke. So $5,000 a year to $24,000. We have agreed to take over some of their utility. They have a bathroom there for the sewer, and there is, so it makes it a little bit more simple that we would just take over those responsibilities of paying those. Because at some point, before I get there, but at some point, as we discussed, is that we believe, as our only facility in town that has a number of flat fields, is that all those fields out there will be turf fields. And that's the trend. I can come up and show you all kinds of diagrams and charts that turf fields actually cost less than grass fields when you get down and after you put chemicals on there and you water them and you know, the quality has come up. So that when we get turf, that will allow for more play out there and not just the soccer association. Of course, the soccer association, as it says in the agreement, is they have the first priority. They get to schedule any practice or events that they want to practice. We have no intention on limiting their use of the facilities during their seasons. They have about 1,000 youth players out there nowadays, so it's a pretty decent sized operation. One of the things that we do in the agreement is that we do indicate that we will build at least 2 turf fields right next to where the soccer complex or where the high school plays their games. Those two turf fields are every year getting a little bit worse condition. It takes an awful lot to rehab those facilities and the use of water and all of that, and those would be the ones that are in the most need of being able to do that. So just that's something that you're agreeing to do out there and in the future, and there is some language that indicates that as long as we have funding available or something like that, so we have a little wiggle room, but I don't think we necessarily, I think it would be a good business decision for us to do that.
Councilman Estes, I look to you as sort of our sentinel of the soccer association. Any comments, or have they been made aware or made you aware of anything that they?
So, yeah, Mr. Fryer spoke to me a week ago, and I know he's already talked with the board there. I got nothing but positive stuff going forward on this. And I mean, it's getting down to the nitty gritty of even building sheds. All they're really gonna have to do is strike the fields. It really is gonna make their life easier. We're gonna build more. They're really keen on, with the lights and the turf, which means adults at night can play. It's gonna expand. They can open more tournaments. They can work with college, in agreement, there's College Hill, there's Avery Johnson as well, to expand their footprint if they have big tournaments. Yeah, and everything I got back was really, everybody was keen.
Well, and I would have to add, thank you, I would have to add with the tremendous investment of the taxpayer dollars in the current soccer complex, having this kind of a new agreement possibly going forward protects our investment even more.
And I think you cannot, you know what I hear you ask the call with it? Are you going to expand Mouse Creek? Are you going to make Mouse Creek safer? Because when you're talking 1,000 kids go out there on Sunday, to play, you know, or 800 to 1,000 every Saturday or Sunday, you know, that's the only question I got. I said, well, it's coming. You know.
I get that question though. Any other comments or questions? Councilman Moore?
100% curiosity. Why do we not run the soccer complex? The city. I mean, we're running pickleball leagues. We just hired a disc golf guy. I'm just curious. Why do we not?
I'm sure Dr. Estes knows more about it than I do, but it's just how it was probably originally put together, and they've always done a pretty solid job. We consider ourselves to be partners out there. I mean, we invest a lot in mowing and chemicals and a lot of those opportunities. I don't think that soccer was well, I just think that they were doing a good job, and there was no reason for us to really get in the middle of that.
It certainly predates me, but I always, if Mr. Taylor's still here, I think, you know, they have the stadium, the city schools also have the stadium for the city schools. So it's always, even the city won, like in the 80s, they won the state championship, one of the very first state championships. And so that started that pre-Flames soccer travel club stuff. David, who's the radiologist in town at Rotary?
Lackey?
No. David.
Yeah,
you know, he had a big part in that, and this is all predates. This is the late '80s. I don't have an answer, I mean,
It just kind of is what it is.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it just seems like, we're talking about sports complex, stuff like that, where it's revenue for the city. It just seems like there's potential for that.
There isn't a problem right now, but it brings the potential. I think that there's other things, they focus mainly on youth activities. I think there are options out there for the city on adult leagues, partnering with them. There's a lot of, I think, once you get turf out there, and I think Dr. Estes was saying this, the options are endless. What we're talking about is once we get turf is being able to have 7-on-7 football tournaments out there. They host the Akoi Cup every year, but our experts are telling us that if you've got turf out there, right now down in East Ridge, they don't have turf. If it rains, they're done. If we go and we get turf, the faster the turf is, we could build that facility that it will be a beacon in East Tennessee for larger soccer tournaments for our area, and it's kind of a arms race to do that. But I think to answer your question, there are a lot of other recreation business plans that we need to invest in and get into. Lacrosse is going to come here at some point. I think Walker Valley already has it.
Girls flag football is huge.
Girls flag football. There are so many options out there once you have the playing facilities and you have grass that can do that. We're going to have our hands full. There's no sense in getting in the middle of the soccer.
Can I throw, when we talked about I'm not totally overjoyed about a sports complex, but I asked Joe that very thing, who's going to run it? Hey, we outsource it. So this is just if we were going to outsource a sports center to be run that way, we're outsourcing this right now.
But we're not pickleball and disc golf. I just don't understand when we're picking and choosing.
But those makes perfect sense to me. Disc golf is very niche, right? And you got people that love it and do it, and it doesn't cost a lot. They're not paying us $24,000 a year, for the right of that. Nor does it cost $24,000 a year probably to keep it up. Pickleball, we're building it. I don't want to get into that mess at all. I don't.
But we are.
We had to keep the peace.
Yeah.
We had to keep the peace. They're not.
I don't know, Bill. I do not know. I don't know if I want to know.
I don't.
I probably don't.
See, how about this? The tension I feel, let's say, with rec and a quality of life, soccer quality of life. Is it to be a revenue stream, or is it to be a quality of life for our citizens?
I get that.
So,
but like Townsend, is the city of Townsend, are they operating it? That's the Townsend Sports Complex, rather. Is that where
Morristown?
Morristown. Sorry, right there.
Well, Seth, do you know that answer?
They are in partnership on it, but most of the facility is leased, managed, all the food service. That's all done with the private company.
But ticket sales, that's city revenue or Greater Soccer Cleveland revenue? Just for example.
I just want to, on the
gate ticket sale?
Yeah.
No, they take.
Parking is the big one. Parking's the big one when you go out to those tournaments.
For soccer?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been out.
But like if you go to the other side of the Y, the north, where my son played baseball there.
Yeah.
Man, it was $10 to park, and then you had to pay $5 to walk past the gate, for all the tournaments. If it wasn't just a regular league game, for all tournaments, all stars, it was $25 a night.
Do we chop that with?
The county doesn't. That goes back to the baseball group that runs that.
But we did annex it.
So we could run through it.
I think that this isn't a 10-year agreement this is a 5-year agreement.
Okay.
I think I think the numbers dictate that there's an awful lot of opportunity for not only the quality of life elements for this, but there's also opportunity for small businesses to bring in $41 million. I think that there's opportunities for the city to get revenue. I think
Quality of life.
between now and 5 years, I think that we're into a build-up. That's where we really have to make a decision on a lot of your questions as far as what is our business. We have to build our capacity before we can do this. And I think your questions are
Are
the
we
right.
leaving money on the table?
What's
That's
that?
all I'm asking. Is the city leaving money on the table
In what? In the soccer?
with having a third-party operator?
I will give you a venture a guess. We could nickel and dime them.
Yeah.
Not
That's
Like
what-
he's
that's all I-
saying,
that's all
yeah,
I need
I
to
just
do.
think it'd be nickel and dime. What Joe's saying, in 5 years, the turf hopefully will all be there, the lights will be expanded to the new 2 Nerf fields, and then we'll know what we have, and we'll know what kind of usage is there.
And the use agreement will make it easier to deal with the
Going
lease
forward.
agreement.
Oh, it's the use is much agreed.
But I will say, all your questions are the ones that we've asked internally. So I think there's a lot of what you're saying is correct.
Okay.
I think as we get more sophisticated and move in that direction, we need to look at this balance between quality of life amenities and making profit, trying to make money off it. I will share with you that we are going to have a study, probably brought a master plan. Jonathan, do we know when that's going to be ready?
It's still a couple months away.
So 2 months away from now, we'll have a master plan that's going to talk about these questions of, are you leaving money on the table or there? The study is going to say probably a little bit. And my philosophy is, first, if your sports tourism programs are run correctly, that for your local kids, you don't want to make money off your local kids. You want them to go and enjoy and have the community aspect. But if you're running your programs right, on the weekends, that's where all the people are coming from, Atlanta and Knoxville. Those are the people that we want their money to go back into our economy. And if we're doing that correctly, we shouldn't worry about the extra $20,000 a year we can make in our local soccer.
You know, something comes out of that in the lease agreement, excuse me, the use agreement is, it's still $10 more if you're a county resident. If you're a county physical resident than if you're a city resident. City kids pay less because we're underwriting costs. You know, and that's,
I mean, literally, the study is pennies for
Yeah.
progress today. I mean, are we leaving those nickels and dimes?
not when you, those pennies are really misnomers, but okay.
Well, that's the case, but still, it's just
It's good work.
It's good marketing,
pennies
yeah.
for progress.
It comes back to whether you consider it revenue source or quality.
Well, yeah, I think your local residents will have premier facilities that they can go and take their families to and be really happy about that. And we don't want to necessarily lose money, but you're breaking even or somewhere in there. But where you want to make money are your tournaments and the people that are coming from out of town. And that's where we need to be with our sports tourism.
Man, 1/10 of an interest rate point on borrowing money on these pennies is 100 times more than what we would be making out at the soccer field. Yeah, so it's like, you know.
Let's move on. I had to ask.
But in all honesty, your question is the right question, and we've had that question is, how hard do you push the soccer association? And what we decided is, now is not the time. Now is the time is to build our capacity with
Let them
our.
run it, let's widen Mouse Creek.
Agreed.
All right, move on.
Bid report.
Phil's Fill sand, limestone, riprap for the public works, in the packet. Surplus property at 2,000 Navistar for the public works department to be sold. Surplus property on Gov Deals. Item 10A, ordinance 2517 concerning a request by Tom, and these are all A, B, C, D, E, D, F, G, H are all there. Item I, Mr. Kimball has indicated that one of the reasons that there are some changes that are going to be made to this PUD, and we also have a request from the applicant to send this back to the planning commission. So we have no ability to take any action on this. This is just sending it back to the planning commission so that they can do some additional changes and some due diligence, and then they'll bring that back to us. Any questions on any of that? Item J is the bus patrol agreement, and then K, depending on what time it is, Mr. Mayor, we can start a conversation on K right now, or we can have the conversation when we get to it in the agenda. And we already had this presentation once about 8 months ago. There were some questions. Some of the questions, or all of those questions, I think many of those questions have been addressed. There are a couple outstanding questions with this that we need to go through and potentially ask our rep that is here. Do you want to do it, Mr. Mayor, do you want to do it now or wait until 3 o'clock?
Mr. Fines, it is 2:45, and I've already gotten a request to move the council reports. So I think if we begin that conversation, we will run out of time. We won't have time to have a quick recess before the 3 o'clock agenda begins.
So we'll do it in real live time.
All right, thank you, Mr. Fines, for that review of the agenda and for your report. Sir, Councilman.
Mr. Kaiser and Ms. Riggins, I didn't say this earlier, I should have. Thank you for raising initial teacher salaries up to August 54. I saw that in your budget. That's great. And Mr. Fidus, I really hope we can do the same with police. I know they're on 312s and I know they get overtime. I know they're getting there by other means, but this is...
What's the question?
It was just a statement thanking schools for raising initial teacher salaries almost to 54, and just keeping in your mind that I request that we continue to push initial police salaries that way. So that's all.
Our comp study should be back in the next 30 days, and that will be instructive.
We're looking at all salaries.
I am speaking about police salaries. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. All right, so we've had Councilman Estes. Any other comments from the council? I would also like to thank Cleveland City Schools. I've not seen you since the opening and ribbon cutting of Barbara's Market, which I thought was just a fantastic venture for our city, but a great event and a great cause. And I was very grateful to have been invited to be there. That takes us through to the announcements, and we will be adjourned until our 3 o'clock meeting.
Get a copy of this stuff? Yeah. Hey, Christie? Mr. Jones, remember we did that resolution? Say so. Hey, Mark. You get all that wrote down? I did, I think. How you doing? What's your resolution?